Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Regents podcast, where two best friends who quit their 9 to 5s to pursue their passions are documenting it with this podcast. I'm Ellyn.
And I'm Aja.
Welcome to episode
Yes,
3.
welcome.
And we are recording on Tuesday, the Lord's Day. Beyonce announced the release of her country music album. So we'll get to that.
Yes,
But I
indeed.
was saying before I pressed record that if you are a audio listener, you're not being blessed by the clear skincare routine that Aja and I are like winning at right
I mean,
now.
we are dominating top of the charts here.
I'm talking hydrated.
Look at
I'm
the glow.
talking, look at you. Look at
Look at
cheekbones.
you.
Well, I have a little bit
No,
of makeup on.
you're well, so do I.
Well, yeah,
I have a little bit, but
just a little. I
but the skin is clear.
The skin is clear. Can't cover up what can't be, it's I don't know
That's
what I'm trying to
right.
say,
We
but
no loads of concealer
the
here.
canvas
You know,
is pretty on point, you know?
the canvas is a canvas. It's
I
blank,
the canvas is a
no
canvas.
blemish.
I just posted a video yesterday and I got so
Mhm.
many comments. I like, oh, the one you saw.
Yes,
I got
you
so
looked
many
great in
comments.
that,
Okay,
and I
okay,
thought
but
of your hat thing.
wait, my hat.
Yeah, remember you were talking
Oh,
about your hair? You were like, "Ah, but this hat, but I look so good. My hair looks so good today."
I know when you see me with a hat on, like for real, that's it. I mean, I was going for a walk, so like I had my hat on to shade my face. I'm not trying to get too much sun. But
Mm.
yeah, when the hat's on, today I washed it yesterday, so that's why we are fully down. Hair is completely down
See?
for those audio
Looks great.
listeners. Um, no, I just wanted to like come clean here to the podcast, the internet, to you as well. That in
Oh,
that video, I
okay.
had taken some editing liberties and definitely had added some filters.
Okay, well,
I did a
whatever.
little smoothing. I put on a little eyelash that I didn't actually have on. It was early
Oh,
morning. I was going
wow.
for a walk with Olive. So I
Yeah,
basically just did like what I would look like if I had put makeup on.
if you had done something. Exactly, because it didn't look, you know,
No, I
abnormal. It
I
looked
don't look.
totally natural.
I think I look in that video the way I look right now, which is just like a little bit of
Yes.
eyebrow, a little bit of mascara, and like a touch of under eye.
Right. There we
So
go.
I just felt the
That's it.
need, and I don't know if this is crazy or not,
So,
but I
yeah,
just
you're
felt the need to like anytime somebody like literally I was getting DMs from people like your skin looks amazing, like da da da. I was like, wow, thanks, oh my
Mm,
god. I just
okay.
felt like I had to come clean because I didn't want to like false advertise and just be like, oh
True.
thanks.
I got you.
I didn't want to just and I
I
don't know
woke up
what
like
that
this.
means. Yeah, I woke up like this. Like literally, I had just woken up, so I will say that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if I need to explain, but I just don't. The internet is so
You don't
raw.
have to at
Yeah,
all.
but the internet is so wrought with like people lying about everything on their face and their skin, and I don't want like I don't know. I don't want to contribute to that. So like if
Okay.
someone is gonna
That's
like go so
admirable.
far as to comment, I'm not gonna lie. I
Well,
wanted my face to look like the way I wanted my face to look, but then I
yeah.
also didn't want to be like
Mm.
untruthful when somebody actually commented about it.
Right, right, right.
Does that make sense?
It does. And like I said, again, that's very admirable. How honorable of you to want to come forth and let the people know it's a filter. But in all honesty, Ellen's skin is clear. Okay. And I can speak as a witness that it was just a slight enhancement from her rolling out of bed. Let's make note of that. She said literally she woke up like this and applied this minimal filter. And
Yeah.
oh God, I didn't want people to think that wasn't my skin, but I mean I did just wake up.
Wow, I have really good moral fiber and like character, don't
Yeah,
I?
you certainly do. We are coming to see that more and more with each episode.
And humility.
Um yeah, no vanity, nothing.
Not an ounce. Not an ounce. I literally couldn't. Oh my God, those pearly gates to heaven are gonna fly right open when I get there.
Amen. Praise God.
Oh my God, I actually just saw a TikTok. Do
Wow.
you know that woman from Long Island? She's like a medium, something Caputo, with the really big blonde hair and the crazy nails. She like
No.
communes with the dead. She's brought
What?
on to like all these different
Okay.
shows. she's a character. You know, she's like one of those TLC shows where it's like Long Island
Oh,
Medium.
okay.
I think that's
Yes.
what it's called.
Okay.
And she's like, "Is anyone with a G? Does anyone know anyone with a G?" And it's like, what the fuck? It's just weird. Like in an audience of 5,000 people, everyone's like, me. Like, you know, it's
Oh, yeah.
nuts. It's nuts. But so anyway, I was watching a TikTok of her. She was on you know, Charlemagne the God, like his radio
Of
show.
course.
Of
Yes.
course. She was on his show and they were just talking and she was saying that she's like, I don't know about like heaven and hell. Like I can't confirm anything. She's like, I just know that there's like levels and if someone's at a lower frequency level, they can't reach a higher frequency level. So
Mhm.
the souls that are on different frequencies can communicate with each other, and those that are on a lower frequency who haven't like learned their lessons yet,
Mhm.
they can communicate with the higher frequency souls who are willing to communicate with them, and then she will receive a message from the higher frequency soul, like her vibrations are
Mhm.
higher, so like because she's still alive. So it was very interesting. And I was just kind of like, this woman seems so at peace with herself
Mhm.
and like when she does these interviews and what she's like learning about people and stuff. And I was just like, you know, if I think I like the idea of like levels and vibrations as opposed to like
I like the
the
idea.
depths of hell. I don't
Oh, man.
really think too much
Well,
about afterlife. Do you?
yes, I do. And actually, I mean, not to the point where I'm like dwelling on it, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently reading this Bible in a year plan. So I'm learning a
Mm.
lot. It's the first time I've ever done that before. And
Like reading the full
the
Bible.
full Bible, yes. And it
Wow.
follows a chronological order. So right now I'm in the book of Deuteronomy. And
I love that word. I love that sound.
isn't it?
Deuteronomy. It
I
sounds so
love
good. I
there's
love the
so
way it
many
sounds, that
symbols.
word.
Right. But, I consider it, and it's been enjoyable, mind-blowing, eye-opening, all of those things. Because 'cause I've always, like, been in the Bible and reading different plans, reading different scriptures and all of that, but to read it in a chronological order, I've never done that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, um or understand or learn a little bit more about
Hmm.
what God has to say about those types of things, the afterlife and all of that. But yeah, I don't know. I
I
guess
think it's
I think
interesting.
everyone thinks about it from time to time, but
Yeah, for
I know
sure. I
there
don't
is
know. I
there.
don't really think about like, I guess because I don't really think too far into the future.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, like I never really have been like sitting like, you know, thinking about, dreaming about like what's going to happen in 5, 10, 15, or whatever. So I think that I don't think about like what then happens after. If anything, I definitely don't fear it. I don't fear
Right,
it.
right.
Olive, please stop eating so loudly. Do you hear her crunching?
She's hungry, Ellen, as was
Mm.
I, just before we hit record on this podcast.
On this podcast. You know what? For everyone listening, just know I saved you because I
Yes,
know that there are people who have like audio like issues with listening to other
and
people eat.
sensitivities.
Yeah, because
Yes.
every time I listen to a podcast and someone comes on and they're eating and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry for all the people who have those like audio issues." I'm like, "Well, then just don't eat on your
First
podcast
of all, why are they eating on the podcast? I did
because
it
they're
pre-recording.
busy. They're booked and busy. They have no time. They have to eat while they're recording.
Oh, wow.
They
No.
shouldn't. They
Eat.
really shouldn't.
No, no.
If your life is so hectic that you cannot eat any other time than when you are literally recording
Literally
yourself
recording.
speaking and you want
Something's
your
gotta
audio to be
go.
clean, you need
Right.
to reevaluate. You need to check your
Yeah.
priorities. It's called misophonia.
Oh, okay. When people can't stand the sound of chewing or just
Hmm.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
I love all those like phobias that like, you know, the one that people don't like lots of little holes all close
That's me.
together.
Stop.
Really?
What?
Like a
Yes.
honeycomb, that's not for you.
No.
Oh,
No.
wow.
It's called, and I remember it and then I forget the name of it. It's like it
I
starts with a T.
trip to
It's
something.
trypto yes, exactly. It's like tryptophobia. Something, but I can't stand it.
Alexa,
Oh
what's the
god.
fear of little holes called? Trypophobia? No, that sounds like some Wikipedia shit. She said
Trypophobia.
trypophobia? No, it has to have like a more like I think it's like
Oh, she's still
She's trying to
talking.
be a third host. Oh my god. Alexa, calm
No,
down.
ma'am. But I can't tell you because I refuse to look it up.
Oh my god, because it's gonna come with a picture.
And it's gonna come with cookies, and all over my websites that I visit, I'm gonna see all these little holes, and I can't. Well, I just don't know the name until someone tells me.
Oh my god. Now, because we're saying it out loud, our phones are picking it up. So you're gonna go on
Oof.
Instagram later today and you're gonna start to get like content
No,
about like how to cure your
please, God,
tryptophobia. But I
please.
get it.
I
Like I
can't even
totally get it. When
imagine.
I look at the back of my phone, there's so many
Mhm.
cameras and so many dots. I'm just like, there are some people who are having issues with that.
They can't even look at
They can't even look. They're like trying to take a picture and they're like, oh.
tell me when you flash.
What does it make you feel? What's the feel? Tell me what you It's like when you're taking a picture in the
Uh,
sun, it's like one, two, three, open your eyes. One, two, three.
Girl, I'm so bad at that. I have, like there's something wrong because when there's, like, a bright light in almost every picture, my eyes are gonna be, like, half low, whatever. What does that make me feel? It just I get, like, goosebumps everywhere, and I don't
Okay.
know. Brandon's always trying to figure out, like, "What is it? Do you think there's something in the holes?" Like, what it I'm like, "I don't know what it is. It just looks creepy."
Yeah.
I can't describe it's not like I think something's gonna, like, jump out of these holes. I just
hmm
am not liking and for me, it's not it has to be a bunch of small little holes. That's the part. If it's, like, one big hole, like, okay. It has to be a black hole. Can't be,
I like how specific this is.
it's very specific because ooh, I just mm.
I'm here for I'm like if
So you
somebody
don't have
has
that fear?
no, I don't have a fear of the little hole
Uh-huh.
situation. I have like a lot of other issues, but not that particular one.
I wish someone would explain it because I thought I was
Like where
alone
the
in
root
that.
of it comes from. Really?
Yes, for
Oh
years because
no.
that's been a thing for me since I was,
Re-
like, in high school.
well, you know what? Thank God for the internet because the internet and everyone's online talking about their ish, and now we know it's like a
Yes, I'm
very
like, "Oh
common
my god,
thing.
you too?"
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
then I, found out that other people, like, had it. I have one of
Yeah.
my cousins, I think she has the same phobia, and then I found out there was a name, so I'm just like, I didn't think this was a real thing, but I don't know why that is. What is it
Mm.
about a bunch of little holes that makes certain
Wait, I
humans
want to Google
cringe?
this. I my favorite thing about like just mental health and just basically like any human issue, like psychology, anything, is that
Mm,
when there is a name for something,
yeah.
um, it makes me feel less alone. It makes
Mm.
me feel like
Like, this is a
I'm
valid thing.
yeah. Oh my God, I'm looking at the image and it's like I also don't like looking at that. I don't have like a full-on phobia, but
But it's not
I
pleasant
really can't look at that. That's really uncomfortable.
her face.
Okay. You
I
see my
really
family? I've unlocked a new issue.
Let's move on.
Oh my God. No, we have to move on.
Oh,
Well, so I really
goodness.
would love to get into your background in music. But before
Mhm.
we do that, I just want to ask you, as another fellow member of the Beehive,
Oh,
um,
yes.
I'm curious. I saw that Beyonce posted that her Cowboy Carter Act
Mhm.
2 is coming out, and I'm
Yeah.
curious what your thoughts are, what your expectations are. I'm very curious to
Oh.
hear your opinion.
Oh my gosh. Background people, let me just give you a disclaimer about who I am as a person. I am I consider myself a founding member of the Beehive, okay? I have been on Destiny's Child, Beyonce since they came out in about 97, all right? And I mean like heavy. So I know every single song from Destiny's Child, Beyonce. And shout out to all the newer Beehive members. I know there are quite a few, but
They may have just been
I
born though.
say
Like they're new
this
because
is
they were
true.
just
This is
born.
they're new because they're young, I
They're new
guess.
because they're young. They weren't
They're
around
new
in
to the world,
97.
like, okay. But
They're like, I
that
don't know a
said,
world without Beyonce. I was born
no,
into a Beyonce
serious
world.
and God bless you.
Yeah.
Love B, she's one of my biggest, like, influences and inspirations when it comes to music. I'm careful not to idolize anybody, but I love her work ethic and the passion that she puts into her music and to her performance and how everything is so thought out, like well thought out and curated. It's not just like haphazard. Nothing she does is haphazard. And I literally try to model that, you know, especially in this very beginning stages of my career. But anyway, that said, I'm excited about Cowboy Carter, and I love the post that she made today, and she's like, this ain't a country album, this is a Beyonce album. And some
Mhm.
people in the comments were like, wow, to be your own genre. But I
She's like, "I'm
and I was
gonna
like,
win a
no,
Grammy
Sherry,
this time. I'm gonna be my own
exactly.
genre."
But I also took it as, you know, like her not trying to fit into anyone's box. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
people are looking for that, like, oh, it's either going to be a rock or a country album. And we're trying to define, you know, who Beyonce is going to be during this era. And she's already like, she don't like boxes. Okay.
Mhm.
Neither do I. Not many of
Yeah.
us do.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited. She said there were gonna be surprises. And I'm not that type of Beehive member who's like trying to figure it out and I'm looking into everything and doing all the calculations. Like
Yeah.
I just take it as it comes because
Mhm.
I think not only is that the way she wants us to experience it, but that's how I remain in my like fan mode and just a
Mhm.
lover of music. I like it when I'm surprised and when there's stuff for me to like dive deep into or whatever, but trying to figure it out, I don't know what she's doing right now and
Yeah.
I won't know until she puts it out. But my opinion, I love 16 carriages. That's my jam. Like
Okay,
that's
I was just
a vibe
re-listening
for
to her
me.
music this morning from this album because I think we
Mhm.
talked about this last week and I was like,
From
"Oh yeah,
Renaissance.
like Texas Hold'em." No, from
Oh, Texas
um
Hold'em and 16 carriages.
Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages, and I was like, "Oh, Texas Hold'em," like it's as I'm just not generally a fan of country, although like I really like Casey Musgraves.
Okay.
Um
Yeah, same.
and the new guy Zach Bryan, I like his music.
Okay.
He's like he came out with like a song with Casey Musgraves, very like young new sound.
Mhm.
More folk. I would say like I like
No,
folk. I don't really love like country.
love
So then when like Texas Hold'em came out, I was like, okay, I guess I have to like try to get on board with this.
I guess so.
But I just was re-listening to 16 Carriages and I'm like, why is everyone like jiving to Texas Hold'em? It's all about 16 Carriages.
It's all about 16
That
carriages,
is like
man.
that is
What?
like music.
Yes, it is so good. So I'm
Mhm.
excited about, and you know, Beyonce does that. Like I was just looking at this post. They were talking about in 2011 when she came out with 4, that album. That's the album with Run the World, right?
Mm.
So when that song came out, I'll never forget it, where I
Oh.
was and all of that. But when that song came out, everyone was like, what is this sound that we're
Oh.
hearing? And we're just like, how is this album going to be? You know, but she kind of like doesn't throw you off, but kind of, because like
Mhm.
she'll put out this song that's like totally experimental and different, and then you get into the album and it's something totally unexpected. You know, like you were thinking
Yeah.
it was going to be all like this experimental sound or whatever this is, you know, drum heavy, and then you get into 4 and it's a lot of like nostalgic sounds like
Mhm.
90s and horns and some
Mhm.
70s vibes, you know, Love on Top and all that. So I think the same thing may be true
I
for
love
this
Love on Top.
one. I think the same thing might be true. It's like, oh, you know, we have the country, the Western theme with
Mhm.
everything, her photos and all of that. And it's a very much a line dance song, Texas Hold'em, but we'll probably get on the album and who knows what you're gonna hear. It's
I
just meant
think I think it's
experience.
going to be really interesting. I think the collabs
Mm-hmm.
are going to be pretty iconic. Like I wouldn't be
Yes.
surprised if Dolly Parton was a part of this.
Oh my
You
gosh.
know what I mean? I think it's going to
Uh,
be people that are
uh
like heavy hitters in the country
yeah.
world so that it's almost like a strategic choice because not
Yeah.
only is she putting something out that's country, so she is going to top the country charts.
Mm-hmm.
It's also strategic in that you're going to get fans of those artists, right? It's like the reason why people
Yeah.
collab in the first place. You're going to get the
Right,
fans of
right.
those artists and that artist's like seal of like I'm welcoming this person
Approval.
in, so you better
Yeah.
as well because I do feel
Right.
as though the country community has I don't know, maybe a stigma around
Word.
it
Right.
by those of us who would maybe not consider us ourselves a part of the country community.
For
Um,
sure.
so That's,
It
I
very
think,
much
gonna be interesting.
yeah, it is. And I'm really happy that she put that whole caption about, this album was birthed from a time when she didn't feel welcomed. And, it was very blatant that she wasn't welcome. And so
Hmm.
that kind of fueled her fire to dig deep and let alone, pull from her own experiences being from the country, but
Yeah.
also, right, people seem to forget that she is like Houston, Texas bred.
Well, I will say
But
she is calling it Cowboy Carter, and I'm like, girl, you're going back to your roots and you're going to use your husband's last name. I get the alliteration, but come on, we should
well,
have
it
been
sounds
like
better.
rocking.
Cowboy Knowles.
I mean, it could have been
No,
something else.
there's
It could
no
have been
ring.
Cowboy K, K, Cowboy Knowles, but she's a KN. So, God,
It's
the English
right.
language is the
Yeah.
worst. KN is not.
No,
No, but
girl.
I
How
get it.
no.
Like, it could have been like, instead of like cowboy, it could have been like bow boy Beyonce. I don't know. I'm just trying to
But
come
see,
up with
that's
some.
the part, I've been reading a lot. So all these people who are fellow Beehive members are
Yeah.
digging deep, right? They're just like, oh, let me tell you why she named it Cowboy Carter. Da, 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 da. And the Carter family and cowboys was this for the black people. And the cowboy thing I knew, but the Carter family I didn't know. Like she was on TikTok or something explaining, why that might have some significance. But I just
Mm-hmm.
love, to me, as a fellow artist and a fan just in
Mm-hmm.
general of Beyonce, it's just interesting to see how she pieces that all together. So I love that she actually spoke to the fact that, this came from me digging deep for 5 years, learning more about country music. And I noticed that too, because I'm listening to the lyrics of 16 Carriages, and she mentioned her age in one of the lyrics. And I was like, hold on, because she's 42 today. So this song is old. Like I literally thought about that. I was just like, oh
Mm.
wow. And so when she confirmed like this album has been 5 years in the making, it's like she probably made this 3.5 years ago. You
You know
know?
what? I wonder if was it called is it called Daddy Lessons from
Yes.
Lemonade,
Yes.
which I love and I also think is like very heavily country influenced. That
Absolutely.
song. I'm
Hmm.
wondering if that I feel like that might have been Lemonade to me
The
is like an
moment.
exploration of self and healing and the understanding of needing to heal and healing going back into your childhood, which then goes back into generational trauma, which I think may, if we were going to like say when did this birth, I would say Daddy
Yeah.
Lessons and
Hmm.
Lemonade. And I know she said 5 years, but like, you know how long you sit on something in the
Yeah,
back of
for
your mind
sure.
before you ever even say it out loud to another person? Like,
Right, right, right.
that's where I would say that's where it started, which is like
I'm gonna tell
almost
her it
10 years
started
ago.
actually 8.
Can
Right,
you
right. That was like
believe
15,
Lemonade is that
16.
long ago?
No, I can't.
This is the thing. And this kind of comes back to what you were saying about Beyonce in the first place of like
Yeah.
the whole country album, the whole idea of creating something that is like rooted in country sound, I'll say, because it's a Beyonce genre, but the country sound
Uh-huh.
is that as musicians, and I kind of felt this way about Renaissance as well. As musicians, I listened to an interview with Pete Wentz like a while ago. He was saying,
Mhm.
he's like, as a musician, people want more of the same from us because
Mhm.
that's how they met us and that's what they're used to.
That's what they fell in love with,
And
right?
that stifles us as artists. Whereas, like, an actor can go from a comedy to a villain to like a romance,
Sometimes. They
sometimes, right?
sometimes
And so
have
sometimes people
yeah.
can wear a lot of different types of characters and they can portray different parts of themselves and they get to like be really fluid. Where as a lot of artists often find that their albums aren't as well received second, third, fourth time around because people want them to be what they were when they fell in love with them.
Yeah.
And I can understand that, right? Like if somebody fell in love with
Mhm.
you because of a certain sound, maybe it's because they like that sound and they're not so much invested into you, the artist. But at
You.
some
Right.
point, if you're invested into the artist, you kind of go with them wherever they're going and follow that journey and like appreciate the
Exactly.
craft for who they are. And I think that with Beyonce, I think that with any artist, like if you're so separated from who they are,
Mhm.
then you're not really like a fan of
I'm
that
not a
person.
fan.
Yeah, you're not a fan. You're more
Correct.
so like, I just like a song. This song
I
I
love
like.
right, I love R&B or whatever it
Exactly.
might
So
be.
like with Beyonce, like I didn't really go full tilt with Renaissance. I wasn't like, this is the best thing ever. I love Renaissance. And it's not that I don't
Yeah.
like it. It's just that like It's not my favorite thing.
It's not
Did
your
I go to the
favorite. Yeah.
concert this summer? Yes. On her
Absolutely.
birthday?
Did I
Yes.
dress?
Was I decked in all chrome? Yes. Did I
Absolutely.
cry at the concert? Yes.
For sure.
Did I scream my head off when um what's her name?
Diana?
Diana Ross came out? Yes. Did I also cry? Did I also cry when what's his name's Mike went out?
Kendrick.
Thank you. I think I love how you remember all the names and I can't. There's so much happening in my brain. I can't remember anything.
Right. It's
I'm
okay.
I only have so much space.
I'm here for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You take my ginkgo biloba.
Right.
Um But, like, I'm so here for her because I love her, and I agree with you. I love that she puts together, like,
Yeah.
these masterful art pieces, and they're so well coordinated, and she's
Mhm.
got this team behind her that she's worked to create, and
Yes.
she's, like,
The
the boss
team.
that's running everything, and we know the story behind how she eventually, like, stepped up and took over everything, and, like, her dad kinda took a step back, and, like,
Yeah.
just I love all of that, and I think that I also now
Mhm.
that you and I have both mutually found Taylor Swift to be not only acceptable, but someone we now like,
Respectable and likable.
respectable.
Yes.
I kind of see a lot of parallels between them about like
Mhm.
coming up and
Yeah.
having a lot of men around them and having a lot of men that have had control of their creative careers until they kind of like stepped into the spotlight, are fully owning their craft and like their
Yeah.
business and the business around them as a business. Like,
Yeah, their
oh,
brand.
I
Mm.
love it. So here I am, not a country fan, and admitted not country fan, somebody who's like,
Right.
I've shied away from it. I'm all
Mhm.
for it. I'm here. Cowboy Carter.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I'll
And
be there.
on top of I'm like on my soapbox. On top of that, and I'm curious what your thoughts are to what I'm about to say. She
Mhm.
is from the South. She's from the
Yeah.
Midwest. She's from the country. And I feel as
Right.
though, as like with most things in America and in our history, a lot of whitewashing has gone on with regards to
Mhm.
what the South looks like and the country, air
Yes.
quote, of our country looks like. And
Mm.
the idea that country music, there's not anyone that looks like Beyonce that's ever been the number one topping, charting, whatever.
Isn't
Like,
that
that's
ridiculous? Mm.
insanity to me
Yeah. Right,
because
right, right.
the population of people who live where the South and country music exists are not all white. Like, there's like,
No, not at all.
and so that's something that I think is like if you look at like the tapestry that is country music, it's like okay, there's Darius Rucker, that's a black man in country music, but like there's probably a handful that like
Mhm.
mainstream would know, but there's so many more probably incredible black artists that are in like the country world because that's probably what they grew
Yeah.
up on. That's part of their
Right.
history. There shouldn't be any like it's just so crazy to me to like take a step back and think about the fact that like it's gonna take Beyonce
Right.
to come in.
It's gonna take
You know what
Beyonce
I mean? It's gonna take
to
her having
change
to like
the whole
make this
landscape.
huge statement
Right,
to
and open
change a
the door.
genre because it wasn't happening and it wasn't
Yeah.
gonna happen.
And I love that though. I love
Mhm.
that she'll carry that burden or the weight of that, and that
Mhm.
she's not tired of, performing or proving people wrong or, bursting past the limitations that people put on her. There's
Mhm.
something so incredible to be said about an artist who, at her level, is not at all taking a step back
Mhm.
or, like chilling out. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
she's doing things differently, but she's she's taking it's more about legacy, and I think that's what's and I don't really think it's all about her because a lot of people were just like, "Oh, well, why did she have to announce her album, when Usher's like doing his halftime performance, blah blah blah." I think it's because she's so strategic. She
Mhm.
probably had that plan before Usher was even chosen because if
Oh
we
yeah.
all remember correctly, he wasn't supposed to I think it was supposed to be Lizzo.
Mhm.
Um, to perform. I don't know. Who knows? I have no idea. But I'm just saying, even still, like it was a big stage for everybody, not just for Usher.
Mhm.
If she's trying to get out that her music is, dropping on whatever, the Super Bowl would be the time to do it.
Mhm.
So I just think a lot of her things are strategic in that she's making history with the
Mhm.
things that she wants to do for her culture, for Black people, just for the world in general. Because I also love that she spoke to the fact in her Instagram caption that hopefully one day an artist's race will not even be, you know, a thought when people are describing a genre or how they sound or whatever it is. So, it's just, I also love one of the things that I probably love most about Beyonce is that she's responsible. She's like a responsible artist. Yeah, she gets risque with these cover art and all that type of stuff. But when it comes to mastering her craft, strategically planning out her career, and doing
Mhm.
things like this that don't just affect her and give her another, notch in her belt, but like create space for so many more millions of people, that's just so responsible. I think it's just the best way. It is, because you have so
Oh
many people who
yeah.
are in the spotlight who are totally irresponsible. They have
Oh
these
yeah.
huge platforms and have the ability to do all these great things, and you're just not pushing the bar for anybody
Mhm.
but or you're having the time of your life, and more power to you. Like, but I think she was just made or built for that, and
I
it's
mean, I
amazing.
think that like that's why she is where she is, right? I
Mhm.
don't think you get to
It
be
is.
Beyonce without being somebody who is like socially responsible,
Right.
whose people can look at and say, in this modern society that we're a part of, right?
Mhm.
Like she is the Elvis, the Beatles, the major name that will
The
never
Michael
ever
Jackson.
die, right? Like she
Right.
is Michael Jackson, she is Aretha Franklin, she is this
Mhm.
name that's never ever going to die. You talk about legacy, right?
Right.
But in our society, she like stands for so much more. And I think that I like, and that's what I agree with you about. Like, she is so responsible. She is thinking about what comes next. I think she looks at her kids and is like, how
Right.
can I leave the world a better place? Like,
Right.
how can I make the
Right.
world better while they're here?
Mhm.
God, I love her and her marketing team.
Yeah,
They're
the
like,
Friday.
us, they're like, let's just do a solid 10-day promo. Let's
A
just
10-day
10-day
promo. Not a week,
promo. Nope. It's
10
perfect. It gives
days.
us like a week and a half news cycle. It's great.
Yes. Speaking of, so I went on Taylor's website. So I had never been to Taylor Swift's website before, but she had, and I don't know where I saw this post or where I saw her talk about it, but she was like, she was talking about the tour and the Tortured Poets Department, which is her album coming up in April or something like that. First of all, I love that title, Tortured Poets Department.
You know
That's
what it's
pretty.
in reference to?
No,
Her
probably a movie I haven't
ex.
seen.
No, no, no. Her
Oh,
ex
okay.
gave an interview where him and this other guy were like, "Oh yeah, we're in the same group text because they're all dating like musicians, women, singers." And it was like
Oh,
the
wow.
Tortured Men's Club or something, or the Tortured Men's Society or something like that. As like
What?
it was like a joke of like they communicate with
Yeah,
each
yeah,
other
yeah.
there. And
'Cause
so
they all can relate. Oh,
mm,
interesting.
it's
No,
like a
I didn't
light
know that.
nod to like, no, you know well, who's tortured me because I dated you.
Right. The tortured poet.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. Truly. Okay, sorry, I
um,
cut you off.
but no, no, no. So you were just talking about the whole cycle of, putting out an album. And Taylor like alluded to this. She was like, oh, I know where it was. It was a clip of her performing on her tour, the Eras tour. And she was like, but after that, guys, I'm just gonna like, I gotta go like MIA because, I gotta put out an album. And that just sparked a whole thing to me because here I am putting out new music later this year. And I'm just like, what does it look like to put out an album if
Mm,
you're Taylor Swift or, an aspiring, up and coming artist? Like all those things that people don't even think about. You probably think like, oh, in the same time I upload a YouTube video, I can probably upload an album, right? No. Like
mm-mm,
there's so many things, and there's obviously on a Taylor Swift and Beyonce level, you have a whole like marketing plan, months long marketing plan
mhm.
and all this other stuff. But I was just like, yo, I would love to see the behind the scenes. I'm a behind the scenes junkie just because, no, seriously, I'm looking for all this stuff. Tell me how you like, show me how you made the song. Show me how you guys released
I
this. Show me how you
love
figured
that.
out what to do on this IG post. Like, I live for that. I love it.
I love
It's
that.
so rich. And obviously in my own industry in music, I I can't get enough. I can't. So when Taylor said that, I was just like, Taylor, show us. Give us a
Give us
documentary
the
to be
background.
putting out. Yeah.
It is pretty
Mhm.
incredible. I think that like yeah, being a great marketer is like it like walks hand in hand with being an artist these days.
Absolutely.
It's kind of
Just because
crazy.
people's attention spans are short, you gotta really be, like, let alone be strategic just in how you roll things out, but, like,
Mhm.
you gotta stay relevant, you gotta stay top of mind because these algorithms are changing and
Mhm.
everybody else is competing, like, it's just
It
oof.
is crazy. I mean, even just this last month, there's a song that's hitting by I don't know what he goes by, DJO, I don't know. He's one of
Mm,
the guys that was in the show Stranger Things.
okay,
He has like music. He puts music out and performs, and people know him, and he's an artist.
okay.
And he has a song that he put out like 2 years ago, toured it, did all the work, did all the things. It's hitting now on TikTok. Like it blew up
Really?
in the last month. And he's like, it's kind of crazy. He's like, I did all the work for this song. Like I already did it. He's like, and
Yeah.
now the song's hitting. And I'm like, you know who can relate to you? Lizzo. Because Truth
Mm,
Hurts came out in 2017
okay.
and it didn't hit until 2019
Wow.
when that movie with Gina Rodriguez, Someone Great, came out. It was her and her
Mm,
girlfriend in the movie, like her best friend, like dancing around the kitchen singing because she was going through a breakup. And the
yeah,
just emotion of that scene and how relatable it was and how they were singing along to that song
yeah.
blew that song up. Blew
Shout
it
out to
up.
the music supervisor
Yeah. Shout
who
out to the
realized
music
that that moment was this song is for that moment for
a
sure.
thousand percent.
Because
And
then
my friends and I had already bought tickets to see Lizzo, Radio City Music Hall, the following
mhm,
September for my 30th birthday. We had already
yeah,
bought the tickets, literally $70.
we wish.
$70. I know it was literally you can't see her for that cheap now. And
No.
like not even
No.
like 3 weeks later that she blew up. And I had already seen her
Wow.
perform live because when I was at Refinery, she performed at one of our events. So I'd already
Oh,
like
nice.
I had known about her. I loved Lizzo. That's why
Yeah,
my friends and I were all like going to go see her. But
yeah,
I was like it was cool to see like the rest of the world like finally like catching up and like taking. But isn't it
right,
interesting that like you can put something out and it just doesn't go to the wider, public and then eventually it
yeah,
does.
right, right.
You
It's
know?
crazy.
You could do all the right and that's the thing. Like you could be doing all the right things. You could be putting everything out in the right way, doing all
Mhm.
that you're supposed to and it just hits a modicum of success. But then you never know. Something happens a couple years later and your song pops off.
Right,
Someone
exactly.
speeds it up and puts it on TikTok.
And does a remix to it and
You
or
know
they
what?
do a
Artists
mashup and
artists are literally releasing sped up and slowed down versions of their songs with the
mm,
originals. Isn't that
wow.
nuts?
It makes sense because
Yeah,
then they can get, you know,
they get the streams.
the streams and the residuals from that because otherwise these people on TikTok or wherever they are, YouTube Shorts,
Is
they're getting
this
all the glory.
is the, is this what you thought music would be when you first were interested in going into music?
Just this landscape today with like
Just the idea that there's so much
online.
more than just the art of creating a song and creating music. Did you think that there was like in your mind when you were like a kid going to college
Yeah.
essentially, you decided to go to
Mhm.
Hartford. We know that's like
Yeah.
an incredible music program. Dionne Warwick went to the the art school.
Yes, she did.
um that's where you went to music school. Um
Uh-huh.
did you have like a real understanding about the business of music before you went to school?
Yes, I had
Okay.
an understanding in that I knew it was a lot of business.
Mm.
Obviously, I didn't know a lot, but I always say I kinda credit a lot of things in my life are like the best of both worlds. I always tell people, like, I went to elementary school in Hartford, and then I went to middle school and high school in Granby. So, basically what that equates to is for the first 6, 7 years of my, schooling career, it was all Black, okay? And then from 7 to 12, it was all white. So, there was that. Then same thing, when it comes to my mind and the way my mind works. I'm very creative, but I'm also very like analytical, business oriented. Like I have this like natural business acumen. So it's like the best of both worlds.
Mhm.
And when I went to school, I knew that I had to, because honestly, I was going to study, what was the name of that program? It was like music management or something like that,
Oh, yeah,
and
okay.
have a concentration in vocal performance. But when I met with someone at the school to talk about like, what I would actually major in, she was like, if you really want to like master your craft as far as like vocals or whatever, she was like, I would highly recommend that you focus on the vocal performance, jazz studies, vocal performance major instead. So I was like, all right, bet I'll do that. And that's what I did. But during that time, I dug deep because we're all in this one school, right? You have
Mhm.
everyone studying classical, musical theater, music management, all of this stuff, audio engineering. Yeah, I'm learning from all of them as they're, learning about these things. But I really dug deep into, music industry stuff, the behind the scenes stuff. I've always loved all of that. And I've been attracted to that. It wasn't just like the performance aspect that I loved, but it was also like, oh, like, what do you have to do? Like, what does the marketing look like? Or what
Mm,
does this look like when you're in the studio and the production and all that type of stuff? So I've always known that there's more to it. And thankfully that helped me because then I studied or got my MBA rather in with a concentration in marketing and entrepreneurship afterwards. And my thesis was, my own business in music. So it's always been this full circle view of being an independent artist, and knowing that that takes more than just performance, but also knowing all the ins and outs.
yeah.
And again, looking to someone like a Beyonce or a Taylor Swift or an Alicia Keys who get very involved in the minute details of everything that they do,
Mhm.
and put out. I've always been inspired and influenced by that. So, yeah, I use both sides of my brain. And it is what I look like. And honestly, now is like the best time because before, Instagram and social media and the internet, like all of that type of stuff, it was obviously like hard,
Mm,
probably impossible to be a successful independent artist because you had to rely on these big corporations
yeah.
and, all of these things. But now I say this with a grain of salt, but like it's easier, it's more
Yeah.
conducive to be an independent artist. There's a lot more right at your fingertips.
I think a
If
lot
only
about
you saw.
how back in the day it seemed like there were so many groups and
Mhm.
they would just submit their music to a local radio station. And if their music hit, then they would get played a lot or they'd get a deal or whatever. And it was like more of a direct to consumer experience of you
Yeah,
submit your music to the local radio will play you or they won't play you. If people want to hear you, they'll play you more. And then that's usually when people start sniffing around for business deals. And now it feels like with the way that TikTok operates, it's almost like that similar idea of taking music straight to the people and letting the people, while it's
yeah.
on the radio, letting the people decide if they like this sound and if they want to hear
What's
more of it.
popular? Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not just in the hands of this one A&R person or
Mm-hmm.
this one individual who they say has the ear, like whatever. It's
Yeah.
literally up to the masses. And now that's people are obviously still getting record deals and all of that. But the way that it works now is if you have a following, that's really the majority of what I've been hearing is if once you have your fan base and you start to build traction on your
Mm-hmm.
own, then people are like, oh, people like this, people are enjoying this sound or whatever, like maybe we should get on this wave.
Well, it's like
So,
proof. It's like proof is in the pudding, right? It's like
yeah.
everybody needs numbers. They need numbers to be able to say, like, oh,
Mhm.
people are listening to your sound. Like they're listening to you or they're liking you or they're following
Right,
you or they're interested in you. It's like, at
right.
the end of the day, it's, blind faith or just like liking something or liking someone or knowing that this person's talented is like just not enough anymore.
Mm-mm. And I'll say this too, because it's hard. It's hard being an artist, putting yourself, whether we're calling them an artist, a singer, a personality, whatever. doing that, you're in front of a camera or you're performing on stage in front of people. That takes a lot. And if even, a lot of people have this whole argument, yeah, but that's what you chose to do. It's like, yeah, well, we all choose to do certain things, but that doesn't negate the fact that those things have hard aspects to them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So it is hard. And me being in the position now where I'm doing this full time, I see more so firsthand than I probably could have ever seen had I not done this full time and still thinking I could do it like on a part-time basis. Um, you just wouldn't know what that's like until you're like put in that position.
I want to make sure we get in with music
Yeah.
your sojourn and tour in China and
Yes.
your experience. I want to hear about
What
that.
an experience indeed. So as I mentioned, I went to school, studied jazz vocal performance, and after school, my parents and I had this like deal. Okay, so we had this deal that if I wasn't famous by the time I graduated and like
Jeez.
visibly made it, right? This is my parents like supporting me absolutely wholeheartedly, but also like we don't want you living on the street.
Yeah.
And we had this deal so that, okay, if things aren't like panning out by 2010, whatever, then you'll get your master's. So I had this opportunity because I had a scholarship being from Hartford and having the GPA requirements, all this type of stuff to be a Hartford scholar. So I was in that program and shout out to Miss Delois Lindsay, who was the assistant VP, I believe, of student affairs at that time. She was like our program advisor for all of the things for BSU, Brothers and Sisters United, for the Caribbean American Student Association, all those things. And she had graduate assistants who worked with her to help, head over those organizations, supervise, oversee the Hartford Scholars Program for
Hmm.
the new scholar students and whatever. So when I graduated, there was an incumbent GA, graduate assistant, and they were to graduate that next year. So I was just like, okay, well, it doesn't make sense to pay for school when you can get it for free.
Hmm.
And get paid at that. So it was like, all right, well, I'll take off this time or whatever. And sure enough, when I took off that time, I was working, performing here and there, doing some recording, whatever. And then the opportunity came for me to do a residency in China at the top of 2011. And so I was just like, so it was like perfect timing. I still had until September of that following year to start my graduate assistant because she was like holding that position for me. She's like,
Mm.
when this person graduates, this is for you. So I was like, okay. And one of my very good friends, Tess Collins, she graduated a year before me and was already overseas. I believe through something that our vocal professor at the time had, kind of connected her to, Sean Montero.
Okay.
Shout out to her as well. And then Tess was moving because she and I connected, and we still do. We connect so deeply on the fact that we're artists. We write, we sing, we do all of that, but we are also very business oriented. Like we run
Hmm.
our own companies when it comes to our music, and we want to get involved in like all of the things. So once she got out there, she was singing for sure, but then she put on her agent hat, and she was just like, what if I can get you out here? Like, da, da, da. Like, I want to do this because I want them to take me seriously as an agent. And she was like really about her business. So she helped to pitch me to this one agent. And that's how that happened. And we
Wow.
worked it all out. I had never been out of the country at that time. It was my first time going out of the country, and I was going to be
Wow.
leaving for a minimum of 3 months.
That is
And
incredible. Like the bravery, the courage to go do something like that.
yeah. Oof. Yeah. And you know what? At that time, I was just like, let's go. Like, I'm ready. I want to see the world. I want to sing. Like, this is everything. And my parents were all about it, terrified, but all about it. And it all happened and fell into place. I had to get my passport expedited because once it was a go after I submitted all my stuff, it was a go.
Wow.
So, we did all the things and I landed in China and I was fine. Like I was all, gung ho until that plane landed in China. And I was like, okay, now what? What am I
Oh.
supposed to do? Like, what? Where am I? But thankfully, I had been introduced to a lot of people like via email and all that type
Mhm.
of stuff. So I am not exaggerating in the least when I say I hit the ground running. People like Kate Bowen, she was another singer who was in the area also touring and doing her residencies. Like, I got off the plane, into the limo, to the hotel, and Kate, like, took me I was out that night. Like,
Wow.
literally, we were out, and she was introducing me to people and all of that. So I was there for about 7 months,
7
and
it
for the
was 7
time
months?
it was 7
That's
months. So it
so
started out as
wild.
3,
Yeah.
but then, it kept getting renewed, and it would have been longer, but it was like, "Well, I have to go back for my
Your
master's." I still
master's.
there was a lot for me to learn in that respect. And yeah, I really didn't get homesick
Mm.
until the end. I
Okay.
remember missing a family reunion, which was in July, and I left at like mid-August or so.
Mm.
And I was just like, "Oh, I've never missed a family reunion ever."
Mm.
And so that kind of hurt, but it was just this amazing experience. I was performing 6 nights a week with amazing, talented musicians. I met so many incredible vocalists and just all sorts of people, just people who came to the shows and who treated us and different experiences, and it was the time of a lifetime. And thankfully I've been back to do other performances, one-offs and stuff like that. So it spawned a lot, and I still have those relationships with the people that I met
That's
from
incredible.
time.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. I mean, I like vaguely remember that time because I was still in college at that time. So it's like
Yeah.
we were like, you were there and then you were not there. But I was like, oh my God, it's so cool. She's in China. She's touring. I was like, this is so cool that somebody like
Right, right.
brought you over there and you're like performing. Oh
Right.
my God,
It blew my
six
mind
days
too.
a
I'm just
week.
like, people wanna, like, pay me to go, and that's what you want, right? Like, that's the
Yeah.
dream. But it's just like, "Wow, really? Okay, that's really, really cool." And it was the most amazing experience because more specifically, I was in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever people, if they've never been to Hong Kong, I kind of explain it at the time that I went. I know that a lot has changed. The landscape has totally changed, especially since COVID. But during that time, it was like an Asian New York City.
Mm.
I mean, just like bustling with all sorts of things and people and cuisines, and they're taught to learn English from a small age. So yes, everything's in Cantonese, but they know how to speak to you. You may not know how to
Yeah.
speak to them. But it was very much I didn't there were certain times where I may have felt like out of place, but most of the time people thought that, I guess, being a black, young lady in
Mm-hmm.
China at that time, they probably thought like, "Oh, she's some star." Like, I'm serious. People would come up and ask for
Yeah.
like autographs and stuff,
Well,
and
I was gonna
I
say that's what
forget
you
when
hear,
Brandon
like
came.
when like a lot of like I've seen a lot of TikToks and I've heard like if you're a tall black man and you're in China, they assume that you're in the NBA.
Absolutely. That
Yeah,
happened to Brandon
yeah,
numerous times. When he came to visit, he was there for like 3.5 weeks. They thought he was who they thought he was. But like, "Oh my god, oh, I wanna
oh
take a
my
picture,"
god,
like the
they want
whole thing.
pictures.
Yes,
I love
yeah.
it. I love it.
So,
That's so
that
funny.
was pretty funny and cool.
Was there a particular meal or food or an experience that you had there that you were just like, oh my god,
Um,
memorable?
there were a lot of things that were memorable. The people that I met so many, um like, people who would come to the shows. They were so there was so much outpouring of love. Like, I remember meeting this one gentleman, he was there conducting business for, like, a week or so, but he, like, took, and it was during the time that Brandon came as well, and he, like, took us under his wing,
Mm.
like, treated us to all these different things. We went golfing, we went to Disney, like, we were supposed to go to Disneyland and all just a whole bunch of experiences. I remember meeting someone, people who, like, do really cool things. I met this gentleman who worked for Porsche, the company, met this author from Australia, like, people just from all over the world, and
Wow.
it really opened my mind because, again, I hadn't been out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So it was my first time seeing all of this, like, on my own and meeting all these different people, seeing all the different ways that your life can go and people telling me about their stories. That's probably, aside from the music, the people.
Mm.
I had some incredible experiences, yes, but the people that I met and got to really, like, interact with and see how they live in a totally different part of the world, that was by far the most incredible thing that happened, just because I don't know another way to put it, but that it opened my mind. It was
Yeah.
just
I mean,
like, wow,
it's an
and you have
education. Traveling is an education of
absolutely.
its own. My parents, I think I've told you this. My parents lived in Germany for a couple years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so my
remember
dad was
learning
in the
about that.
military, and they traveled
Yeah.
a ton. They lived in a bunch of places. They lived in Germany for
Mhm.
like 3+ years, traveled all around Europe. They lived in Oklahoma for a really long time, so they got that experience
Mm.
in this country.
Yeah.
And while neither of my parents went to college, they I think they both would say that their education, like their adult education of
Yeah.
life, came from traveling and living in different places and seeing how different people operated and perceived
Absolutely.
life. Because
Life.
it's people have, different backgrounds and take in information differently and just think differently. So I think it's so important that, like, I think it's incredible to be able to immerse
Mhm.
yourself in another culture and like live within another culture. It's one thing to
Right.
vacation, it's a
Yeah.
different thing to actively live within a different culture or in a different place that's so different from where you grew up.
So different. Yeah, that's an important point. We can vacation in these places for, a week, 2 weeks, maybe
Yeah.
3 weeks. But living there and actually, really conversing with them and getting to know who they are, like, there were some people. I had this one friend, oh my gosh, he would come to our show, like, every night. He was my friend, like, he held my, going away dinner and all this other type of stuff. So, you realize too the similarities. You can obviously get excited about, and be intrigued by the differences of how people live, but then you also see all the similarities, like, we're just human beings.
Yeah.
Just like us, they have dreams. Just like us, they wanna, get ahead in life and
Hmm.
provide for their family, like, basic things,
Yeah.
and that's really cool to learn too, and at such a young age. Because, yeah, I was still very much in my formulative years, like, just graduating from college,
Yeah.
my first, like, real adult experience, post-college. It was, and I was just so grateful. I remember, like, journaling. There was this crossing guard, that worked at the corner of where my parents lived, and so I had known her ever since I was a little girl, like, going to elementary school or whatever, and so when I graduated from high school, I think, she gave me this journal, and I took
Oh.
that with me to China, and I remember writing about, all the different things that I was experiencing and seeing and learning, and it was just like this full, circle moment, like all these people, my village, who helped to, bring me up from the crossing guard to my family and,
Oh my
you know
God. You journaled while you were in China. Do you still have that journal?
absolutely.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. That is such like an amazing thing to have done. I think that that's
Yeah.
like, I look back and I'm like, God, I wish I had like consistently journaled during any point in my life, because it's just such an interesting thing to look back at and like
Yeah. It
see what
really is.
your headspace was and how you thought, or what you thought was happening. I can't. I'm so inconsistent about journaling and like writing things down.
Well, let me, set the expectation here. I'm not consistent by any means, but I did have some moments where, I really was like, "No, I need to write these
I
things
want to
down
remember that.
because, like,
Yeah.
this is." Yeah, I wanna remember it, and, like, this is such a pivotal moment in my life, in my career, like, all of these things,
Yeah.
that I just never want to forget.
Mm.
And it's so cool when you have, like, I literally the notebook is, like, behind me in my bookcase,
Mhm.
but it's also and I love tangible, like, I love a planner. I just got rid of an actual planner this year,
Oh,
and went,
really?
like, the digital route. Yeah, but I love that. I love, like, flipping through the page
Yeah.
and seeing, like, that's how I was writing. I was so tired that my handwriting is illegible.
I totally relate about like wanting something physical, Like,
Yes.
I'll write notes or I'll write down or I'll put them in my notes section on my phone, but sometimes there's like nothing as good as like filling out like an actual planner or a
Actually.
journal, like, and like
Yeah.
writing it out and seeing the week. Like, I have taken
Yeah.
to retroactively, if I don't do it, my calendar in my kitchen. Um,
Okay.
I will, if I don't put the thing that I'm doing on it in preparation, I'll do it after the fact.
Mhm.
So I'll be like,
Okay.
oh, like last Thursday, I
That's
totally
what I
forgot I went
did.
out with someone. I did this. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Because I want to be able to
I
look back and
totally
see
agree
like
with
what I
you.
did.
Absolutely. And I think the happy medium that I found was because first of all, I'm running out of space. I get a new planner like every year and it's just like, girl, where are we putting all these planners? And sometimes you go through bouts of time where it's like, 2 weeks I didn't really put anything in my planner. Maybe it was
Yep.
like stuff on my phone, whatever. So I got an iPad last year at the end of last year and my sister put me on to shout out to Ashley. She put me onto like the paper feel, like
Oh,
films that
yeah.
you can put over your iPad. When I tell you I love my iPad,
Oh,
it is everything. That's the only Apple product, people, that I
oh my
currently
gosh.
have. I'm an Android girl, but
Pretend you
I
didn't hear
love that
that.
thing.
It's okay. This
This is
podcast
where
is,
she and I differ.
you guys have to
This
understand
is
the pain
insane.
I feel every time I text her and it comes back in green. It's so
It's
upsetting.
green.
That's why we don't text. We only really communicate like in person or like on the phone or in a video call
In
because it's
person,
like,
right. Yeah,
the
right,
texting is
on the
just not
phone.
it.
She just can't stand to see that
I
green.
can't. But you know what? This podcast is distributed on
Oh,
iTunes,
man.
Apple Podcasts, as
That's
well as
right.
Amazon and wherever you get your podcast. So we do not discriminate when it comes
Spotify.
to platforms. Yeah, Spotify. But
Not at all.
I will say, if
Um,
you're coming at me with a green bubble,
what, Ellen? What are you gonna do?
I'm just gonna think twice. I'm just gonna think twice. I can't send you memes. I can't
I'm
send you
just gonna think
pictures.
twice.
They're not gonna come
Oh
through
my
right.
goodness, they're gonna be
You
blurry.
know what? It's like, let's just WhatsApp. Like, let's just skip over it all. Just go to WhatsApp.
That's what I do with quite a few of my iPhone people.
Yeah, I
We
might
just
just
I
pop
mean,
to
it's
WhatsApp.
encrypted.
Yeah,
We might as well. We can
yeah.
send
I do
audio
have you
messages
pinned
clearly.
in my text messages at the top.
Oh,
Because like there's
I'm
people that
pinned.
I text with. Yeah, well, there's people that I text with that like maybe I don't text with as often, and so
Yes.
that when I do get a message from you, if I'm the kind of person who like read it and then mark it as unread,
Mhm.
so then I like
I
to
can't
keep
stand
it.
that.
Yeah, I like to keep it at
Right.
the top so that I can like not
I've been
miss
doing
it.
that lately too, like pinning stuff that because sometimes when you open up the app and it's like, no, I didn't mean to mark that unread. Like
Yeah,
I leave it or mark it as read.
yeah,
So I'll put it up to the top so that I know like I gotta respond to
yeah.
this. It's not
It's
showing
so
up as like
funny
a
that
marker.
like there's probably other ways to prioritize like messages and text messages, but literally I just read and unread. If it's unread,
Yeah.
I'll come back to it. If it's read,
Yeah.
it's in an abyss somewhere.
I don't know what happened.
I
Exactly.
don't
I've
know.
I've
Don't ask
forgotten.
me.
If it's not pinned.
If I mean literally my inbox and my email is like it's really only organized by read and unread.
No categories, no labels,
It's rare.
nothing.
There's some, like there's some financial stuff that
Mm.
there's in a category, but other than that,
Yeah.
I'm really deleted and
Red and
spam. That's all I
unread.
got really. I'm
Yeah.
like, what do you really need extra? You know what I mean? I'm a big
Oh
fan of
man,
like
girl,
the
see mine is so
search
different.
function. That's what I'm saying. Like you're better at being organized and like
Oh
in
man.
like in the bucket. I would love that. I want someone to come in. I swear to God, I just want someone to come in and like do the things organize
Organize my life.
me,
Please.
organize me, shop, do my fashion styling. I'd love to have hair and
Oh
makeup.
yeah.
That's why I feel
Yes.
like we need this
Yeah.
podcast to take off because we need
Because
the
Ellen needs her own
because no, what we
anyway.
need is we need to become so like so famous, so rich and famous that in our own respective pursued careers, but also through this podcast,
Yeah.
because I would really love to have the disposable income and then the access
Mm.
that comes to personal assistance, hair and makeup, you know,
Ah, perfect. Consistent. Oh my gosh.
the injectables coming from certain doctors, like to preserve my face. Like you have you
Oh
heard the
my
quote,
gosh.
like you're not ugly, you're just poor? Have you heard this? This is a quote on the
No, I
internet.
have.
Yes. So basically it's like the reason
Oh,
why
wow.
celebrities look so good
Mhm.
is because
Because
they
that's
have
a part
money
of,
to
like, your
spend on
job.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
look at Issa
And that
Rae and the evolution of Issa Rae, and it's like she was
Mhm.
always a gorgeous, beautiful woman and extremely talented and created an incredible show. But if you look at
Yeah.
her into today, now,
Mhm.
it's like she walked through like a mist and became like a celebrity. Like she went from being like a great actress, great comedian, like she went from being like I don't know, even like remotely accessible, like a normal person
Yeah.
almost, to like
Right, right.
she walked she walked through
Like,
the
she's
mist of
gorgeous.
celebrity and is like, what the hell happened? Like
Now she's untouchable,
she's
right?
literally untouchable. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, just pour some of that on
Oh,
me. You
man.
know what I mean?
I'll take some of that potion,
I'll
please.
have some. Give me a sip.
Oh,
She's
man.
like a great
That is so
example. Like she's
funny.
like a perfect example
Yeah.
of it. Like there's so many people that I look at that like went from like in like the celebrity world who went from like
Normal.
relatively like normal person to like
Yeah.
it's not even like you can point at specifically any one thing. It's that they just
Yeah.
became like an elevated, heightened version of themselves. Like
Of
their eyebrows
themselves.
look
Yeah.
exactly how they're supposed to look. You know what I mean? Like their skin complexion is
Yeah.
perfection. Like their hair color is like exactly the right hair color that's for them.
For
There's like
them.
their outfits,
Yeah.
you know, they're like perfect.
Mm.
Even when they're like the
The
schleppy
fashion.
schlop kebab like look, it's still a great look. I'm like, I want that. I also don't want
Oh,
to have to
man.
like think about that stuff.
2.0.
You know what I
Mm.
mean? I
Right, right,
want that
right.
to be like, okay, don't forget, like you have a dentist appointment on the calendar. Okay, don't forget you have like that facial coming up. Okay, don't for
Mhm.
oh, you have a styling session with blah blah blah. They're gonna come in and like help you pack for the trip that you have coming. Like I want that stuff. That's I hate to say that
Yeah.
I'm like materialistic because I'm really not materialistic. I'm not someone who like
No, no.
wants things. Excuse me. I just want
Mhm.
like that kind of like
The
ease of functioning of
conveniences.
life and the convenience,
Yeah.
but the level of what I would like to look like or what I'd like to have or what I'd
Oh,
like to,
yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah, for sure.
you
Who could
know,
be mad at
you
that?
know, I saw this woman,
And
she was on a
listen.
wait, go for it.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I
No,
just saw this
you
woman
go
on this
ahead.
podcast and she basically like listed out all this stuff, like I was just saying. And she like
Mhm.
backed into a number of how much money she would need to be able to afford those things. And like backed
Okay.
into a number of like a yearly amount of money she could be making so she could afford the life that she wants. And she's like, yeah, so like at the end of the day, it looks like I need to be pulling in 5 million a year. And she's like, once you have that number, that's not that unattainable. And I kind of
Right.
sat back and I was like, yeah, you know what? Once you kind of have like a very clear picture, I mean, that comes back to vision boarding and being very clear
Absolutely.
about what it is you
Mhm.
want. I feel like one of these episodes we should dedicate to us doing our vision boards because
Absolutely. That's a
when
great
you and I
idea.
did our vision board going into 2020, although we did
Mhm.
not see a pandemic on the horizon, I
Didn't.
do believe that a lot of what we put on our vision boards did come to fruition, except for the travel
Yeah.
element. You know,
That was very
I still have a
much.
picture of that vision board because there was
Oh, do
so much
you?
on there that like really resonated with me, and I've achieved
Yeah.
a lot of it.
Oh, I love that. No, we
We got a
absolutely
vision board.
should. That's definitely a dedicated episode. This is gonna be the end of this month is the end of the first quarter of the
Yep,
year.
perfect
So
time.
that's like a perfect time.
Look at
Yeah.
us. We said we were launching our podcast. We're doing our
Yeah.
podcast. We're just going to do it in Women's
Yeah.
History Month because we are clearly going to be making history. And
That's
this
right.
is such like, and now we're kind of coming to the end and it's time to like, okay, let's reflect on Q1. Let's prepare for
Yeah.
Q2. Let's get ourselves together. It's so funny. I really haven't talked in like quarters language in a while
Yeah.
with regards to like that work part of me, like that career side of me. We'll have to talk about the evolution of what was my career
Transitioning.
at some point and the
Yeah.
transition of how we moved
No,
from our
that's
careers into this world. So yeah, I think it would make sense for us to have like maybe some topical things to go over because like
the
I
theme.
think it's
Yeah.
nice the way that we ebb and flow between everything.
Yes.
Um
Mhm.
But yeah, so we will, yeah, there's a lot of like our history to talk about too,
So
and our
much,
backgrounds and where we
yes,
come from and
to
all that.
show how we got here.
Exactly. Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
so I think that we can close the podcast by teasing that we'll talk more about ourselves in another episode.
You'll have to tune in and see.
Exactly. You guys can follow us on social media
Yeah.
at the Regents Podcast on Instagram and TikTok and
Yes,
YouTube.
sir.
And our you can get this podcast. Well, you're listening to it, so you're getting it where you get your podcast. So you can get this podcast where you get your podcasts, and we'll leave it
Where
at
you
that.
get your podcast. Absolutely. You'll know how to get
Spotify,
to us.
Apple, Amazon, the places. So thank you all for listening, watching, following along. I'm Ellyn.
And I'm Aja.
Bye.